So, Prof, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us today.
More than welcome.
Can you imagine that it's 20 years today that Professor Rotimi left us?
I must say, it's very difficult. I've been to Ife a few times, and both the university and the city itself. He opened up Oriolokun Center. At least he was part of the team, Crowther and so on. But his company, was really the dynamo behind that whole cultural center with his performances, his productions. And so each time I go there, I remember him. And of course, his son celebrated him. He invited me to lecture in his memory a number of years ago. So somehow, I've always kept in touch with him, if you like. One more point, that the connection between us. And that when I was in exile, his encounter with some brutal soldiers on the road, which he narrated to me personally, it's something which has stayed with me. I mentioned it in one of my books.
Prof, I know you mentioned the personal story that he told you in your book, You Must Set Forth at Dawn. But could you please share it with some of the people that have not read the book?
Well, he met these brutes on the road. There used to be roadblocks and so on. And these soldiers, of course, took great pleasure in humiliating the civilian population. And the more grammar they sensed that you spoke, even before you opened your mouth, the greater the humiliation they wanted to give you. And sometimes when there were long queues and these soldiers were examining the vehicles, there were more than one, and they would sometimes pass a vehicle, say you can come out and go, especially if you were in a station wagon, which is open on all sides, which is what Ola was driving. And one of these soldiers, inspecting, took a look inside, invited him to go along. Well, poor Ola, he met another soldier who was examining other vehicles, who stopped him. He said he had jumped the queue. The more Ola tried to explain to him that his own colleague had passed him, the more infuriated that soldier was. And finally, said, of course, and Ola was with his family, his wife and his children, I think two of them. And so he told all of them to come out. At least Ola to come out. He told him to turn his back. And so I said, what? He said, turn your back. I'm going to whip you for jumping the queue. And one of those moments which, I wasn't there, I wasn't present, but that moment has lived with me in a really tortured way, because I've always asked myself, what would I have done in the circumstances? When he told me, I said, what would have been my reaction? Anyway, Ola hesitated for quite a while. Then the man cocked his gun. He was going to shoot him on the spot. And Ola said, I looked at my wife, I looked at my child. I said, am I going to turn her into a widow and my children into orphans? So he turned his back. And this man lashed him several times. It would have been better if I'd seen it. But it's worse, I think, imagining it and asking myself, what would I have done in circumstances like that?
Prof, a lot of people would not know the kind of relationship that existed between you and Ola Rotimi. Please, could you tell us a little bit about your relationship?
At the beginning, there was, as usual, a kind of wariness. He got to Ife. I was in Ibadan. In fact, I'd been in exile for some time, then I came to Ibadan, then to Ife. And he was already firmly established. And people, I think they fear that there might be, as usual, people like conflict. People, they thought there'd be some rivalry, that kind of nonsense. So I was just looking at all of them, listening to the comment. We warmed to each other immediately. We took to each other immediately. And I used to attend his rehearsals. He was very deft with crowd scenes, you know, in his production. It's just wonderful. He had a marvelous touch, something which I liked. So I used to go and spy on him, you know, when he was directing.
That's very good to know.
And yes, and we got on very well. And he used to come to the house when I was in Ife, and we had a marvelous relationship. You know, it was that intimate that when he had that episode, when I arrived from exile, he couldn't wait to talk to me about that.
I see. Was there any particular play of his that you would like to have produced or to have directed?
Well, his most popular play, of course, and one which launched him on the Nigerian scene, was Kurumi, which is a historic reconstruction. And I think that was where his real métier lay, in historic reconstructions, presentation, and so on. And, but he was very versatile also. I remember he also experimented with theater of the absurd. I remember his play, If, which I loved. You know, it is very witty, very topical, and really, and the audience also loved it. There was another one whose title I can't recall now.
Holding Talks?
Yes, Holding Talks. That's the other one, yes. So again, that was a very witty one. So he was versatile, and it is really marvelous to see him changing genre, moving between genres, yes.
A lot of people have compared your work with his. What do you think is necessary?
No, I'm not going to compare my work with anybody's work. You know, that's for people like you to do, you know, but I can talk very freely and quite comfortably with other people's works.
Thank you very much, Prof. Prof, you said you had the opportunity to see him at work. What kind of a director would you consider him to be?
No, I think he was exactly the kind of director he wanted to be. And remember, he studied theater in the States, and you could see that he spotted the kind of direction which would actually bring out himself, bring out his talent as a playwright. So he was very conscious from the very beginning of, he had a sense of historic sweep, you know, when he looked at a stage. That was the feeling I got about the way he directed. So speculating what kind of director would he have been? He would have been exactly that, whichever way he went.
So was there any time that you, both of you wanted to collaborate, to work together? Maybe you wanted to direct his play or he wanted to direct your play?
Well, we just worked in tandem, you know. You to remember, once or twice after I wrote Death and the King's Horseman, actually would have wanted us to collaborate on that kind of production, because he would have, in fact, he would have done all the hard labor. I would just have sat down and watched, but told him what kind of interpretation I wanted in it. I would have loved to collaborate with him on a play like that, but we never did.
Do you remember any of his productions that will remain with you?
Oh, I think for most people, Kurumi is one because it's so graphic, so visual, and that kind of direction, that kind of play sticks on the mind, I think, more than even the more cerebral or theater of the absurd, you know, like Holding Talks and so on. I think Kurumi is the one which would stay with most of us.
Very good. Sir, when I sent you my email, you mentioned to me that just a day before I sent you the email, you harped upon his mimeographed statement. I said that was the first foray into international affairs.
That's
Could
right.
you please explain on that, sir?
Well, at the beginning, I didn't really, I just took it and I put it aside. I said, let me take another look when, you know, some other time. At the beginning, he was not overtly political. He just was, you know, 99% theater, no matter what the theme was. For instance, his Kurumi was not geared to making any contemporary statement. No, he just loved presenting history, you know, on stage and making it dramatic, interesting, and if anybody wanted to extract any lesson from it, that was their business. In other words, he didn't try to make an overt statement with his early productions. However, coming back into Nigeria after a number of years, seeing what is going on around him, watching the kind of military distortion of society, and also, of course, the social anomalies, he became drawn into social commentary, political commentary. And he was no longer satisfied even with presenting those on stage. And he came out, to my surprise, with this statement. As I said, I remembered it immediately. I remember what was inside, but I haven't refreshed my mind with it lately.
I see. I don't know if there's any other question that you'd like me to ask, but if there's none, I would like you to say a few words to our attendants and our participants. Thank you very much for your time, Prof.
Well, it's a pity that this exercise didn't start early enough. I think we might have succeeded in trying to bring together those who were witnesses to, or participants in that Oriolokun period, and to see, Akimbola, Femi Yuba, those who were present at the time, to see if we could have restaged in his memory as close as possible as his own interpretation and presentation, that classic Kunomi. This is something which I would have loved to see and be part of if COVID had not scattered things and sort of disrupted people's timetable, projections, and so on, even bringing people together, of course. However, it was the same. It was great having known and worked with Ola Rotimi, and it's great to be able to remember him.